All right, everyone, welcome back to the show. I am here with Marie Vivas from the International Baccalaureate program, and we are unpacking everything about the IB to help you better understand what this curriculum is and what it has to offer. And it's something that I think is becoming more and more available across American high schools, and something that I would encourage students to take a careful look at, because I think it is a wonderful curriculum. And one of the things that I noticed, Marie, as you were talking about IB, that I think is consistent with everybody else that I've spoken with who comes from an IB background, is the curriculum is holistic. It really is one program. If you're doing the DP program, even though you're taking many classes along the way, there's integration within these spaces. There's interaction across these courses. And it's something that feels like a whole in a way that I think a lot of other curricula don't necessarily. How do you help to get instructors and schools ready to teach the IB in the way that reflects this kind of unified perspective on educating students?
Well, there's three pieces to that. The first one is structural. So all teachers, heads of schools, coordinators are going to be trained by IB and IB pedagogy. We also require that the schools offer cross-department as well as cross-grade planning time for all teachers.
Yeah.
And so that way we're making sure that they're working in concert, right? And then we have interdisciplinary programs going on within the IB. So there's a group 4 interdisciplinary program where the science students are working together across the different disciplines. And there are a number of other ways. There are a number of interdisciplinary courses that hit one or two areas of study. And I think perhaps the most important piece in the diploma is the theory of knowledge course, right? Because in the theory of knowledge course, we are asking all of the questions about how to learn, how to apply knowledge, how to think and discuss knowledge critically and to communicate knowledge clearly, how to apply it ethically. And we're doing that across all 6 disciplines. And you know, to me, this is a passion for me because I taught TOK back in the day when I was in high schools. And at that point, I can tell you, you know, I'm not a math expert, right? But I was able to always integrate the academic teachers into the different units of TOK. So we might be having a conversation about logic and philosophy, and I might bring in the math teacher, or we might be having a conversation about art, which will entail bringing the literature teacher in to talk about what is literature versus technical writing. And so a well-developed TOK course, and I think it's the most beloved course, because if you're a 17-year-old, you're being asked all these great questions and to think about it. And it's also actually a very hard course because of the kind of writing that you have to do. But in TOK, we're really setting the stage for all of these things are connected.
Yeah, I think when I wish that I had done IB, it really centers on the extended essay, that research project, and TOK. And just wishing that I'd had an opportunity to take that class. Now, I was a philosophy major in college, and so I got to do a lot of that stuff anyway when I got to that college level. But TOK, I think, is so fascinating and just almost universally beloved by the students who are in the IB program. I think that it is the kind of class that students imagine when they think about college. It is thoughtful. There are big questions they get to engage with. The answers aren't prescriptive. It very much is a, what do you think about this? And how can you defend the ideas that you're putting forth in this classroom's discussion-based? As a former teacher of TOK, can you help give a little bit of a flavor of the kinds of content that students might get to interact with in that class? What are the things that they're reading? What are the major questions that they get to wrestle with? And what was the general energy within the class when you were interacting with students in TOK?
No, students did love it. I mean, I think that 16 and 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds really want to be challenged to sort of reach for big ideas. And I don't think we do enough of that in regular high school. And I think that's what TOK does. And that's why there's such great thirst for it. I think you know, a couple of examples of topics that came up frequently. And yeah, I'm talking a few years ago, but the whole idea of genetic engineering and the ethical perspectives of what you do with that kind of science, and can you stop science once it's started, and are we playing God, and what are the ethical and philosophical implications of that? That was a huge topic all the time with students, and I loved those conversations that delved into there's more than one dimension to what we're talking about. So another example would be, when we would talk about art, like what is art and what is not? Why are some things worthy of being in a museum and others worthy of being on TV? And having a conversation around who defines that? How is that defined? Is there any rigor to it? So across the board, I always found it interesting to delve into those kinds of ethical dilemmas. So students who, for example, now would take the new math applications course, are heading into a world of computational and applied mathematics. And so if you're using applied and computational mathematics, there are uses for it in immunology, in defense systems, in population control. What is the significance of that when you're talking about economics, when you're talking about geography, when you're talking about global politics? And so all of the subjects are kind of tied into that conversation that started out about applied mathematics. So that's kind of the exciting thing about TOK.
It's great. My senior thesis in college was literally titled "The Ethical Implications of Creating Life from Scratch." It was a philosophy of biology thesis. And I think you may have used that exact phrase as you were describing TOK in there. So it just confirms that would have been a class that I would have loved. The going from what I love about IB to what I may have most dreaded about IB is perhaps the exams, right? And exams, as you mentioned, are an integrated part of this curriculum. It yields a particular score that you can earn in the subject matter that you've taken. And I think one of the reasons that a lot of families are focused on AP curriculum is because they can earn college credit for particular exam scores. And they should know also that you can earn college credit for IB exam scores. That is an ever-present question that we get from students when they're thinking about the curricular choices that they want to make. And how do you answer questions that students have about the relationship between college credits and IP exams? And maybe there's a further defense of IB exams in their role in terms of supporting the learning process as well.
Yeah, so there's two things. First of all, students can get credit for IB exams. So I'd say like 99.9% of institutions in the US give credit for higher levels, kind of across the board. Mm-hmm. And many give credit for standard level courses. So, we have whole states that have credit. So Florida, Texas, Illinois, for example, all the state universities give credit. But we also have many universities that are coming back to us and saying, we understand the IB better. Let's start giving credit for standard level. So that's kind of an ongoing part of my job. But I always talk to students about retention and persistence, because I think that the piece that is most important about the way IB students learn and how they become responsible for their own learning journey is that they are so well prepared for university that traditionally, even in our low-income Title I schools, and you should know that 60% of our schools in the US actually qualify for Title I funding, which means that they have 60% of low-income students. So even those students who are only taking 1 or 2 IB classes retain that. What I mean by retention is that beyond the first year of university, they don't drop out. They continue and finish, right? And so we have our own studies that should show that they retain at over a 20% rate from all other high school students coming into university. That means that IB students are so well prepared for the first year of college that they do better in school. They're happier, they feel more confident, their grades reflect that, and they move on to second year. And I always say to parents and kids, because I know that US universities are expensive, and so they're thinking, okay, I can get a credit here, I can get a credit there. And I'm saying, yeah, but if you've paid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for tuition for your first year, and then your child drops out because they couldn't really do the work, or they were not feeling that they were competitive enough, then you've lost $50,000.
Right.
I mean, if we want to talk about it from the economic perspective, but I think that the other really cool statistic that I love is that we have found that students who do extended essay also do better in first year tend to do more research and tend to go on to graduate school at a higher rate. So it's not just that kind of transactional monetary piece. It's also, I am better prepared to face the rigor of a college course because of IB.
In my experience, that certainly was true in terms of what we were looking at in an admission office, the applicants that we were reviewing. We had such confidence that IB students were going to be well prepared to handle the rigors of Reed College, which is an extremely rigorous, academically oriented, writing-based institution. We knew that the IB students were ready for that. So it is as good as it gets, I think, in terms of a curriculum for preparing students for that. Now, I want to flip that coin over, though, Marie, because it is also challenging. It is also a lot of work. There are high expectations for students within the IB curriculum. And how do you help students to understand how to make a choice about an IB curriculum when they have other commitments, or they might have other concerns about their overall balance within their high school careers? How does IB help to support that need on the part of students as well?
Well, at the center of every IB program is something we call a learner profile, which are the sort of 10 traits that we try to nurture in our students: open-mindedness, inquiry. They have to be inquirers. They have to be balanced, right? There's a number of things like that. And I want to talk about balance because I think that's what IB is trying to help students to learn, right? Yeah. So there are a lot of assignments in IB. It is a very rigorous program, that is true. And especially the first semester of senior year, when there are many things due and at the same time that students are doing college applications. But the time management piece is hugely important. So students do need to learn. And IB provides those structures. IB schools, IB counselors and coordinators work with students to learn those time management pieces, setting deadlines, setting expectations early on about what has to happen. Every school that I worked on, the coordinator spent a lot of time with students, sort of workshopping, right, those pieces of how to manage your time. And, in the US, there's also the option, in many international schools, the IB is the only game in town. In the US, students do have the option of taking 1 or 2 or 3 classes. What we have found is that even students who are taking 1 or 2 or 3 classes are benefiting from those ways of learning. However, I would say the IB diploma is achievable by any student who wants to stretch themselves academically. It is not so hard that it can't be done. Only, less than 1% of our students get the top 45.
Right.
But the vast majority of our students do well enough to get into a competitive university and have a good, successful experience. So think about it. I'm not saying it's right for everyone. I love that the career-related program offers students the opportunity to branch out and do these other things. So, for example, we have student athletes who work with the World Academy of Sports. So they're doing their career-related studies on sports management, and they're world-class athletes, and they're strong students. So there are a lot of ways in which you can juggle this. And I encourage students to think about the learning experience they're going to have, the skills they're going to acquire, and what that means in terms of success and match and sense of satisfaction once they're at university.
I'm not surprised, Marie, just in the time that I've gotten to know you, and in also the approach from the IB program at large, that you're really thinking holistically about the value of what this curriculum can give to you. And I think actually one of the things that I didn't get a chance to ask you explicitly, but I am hearing from you, is that even for students who are only able to take 1 course or 2 courses from the IB program, there is considerable value in terms of retaining that knowledge and benefiting from the very thoughtful approach that IB has had to curriculum. Is there anything else that you would want to leave us with, whether it's on that subject or any other subjects for students who might be taking a look at this?
I would say, yes, even if you take 1 course, you're going to learn a new way of learning. And you're going to be an agent who holds the control of how you learn and how you apply knowledge. And that is a skill that you're going to use not just in college, you're going to use for the rest of your life. Because in a rapidly changing world, we are being asked to learn all the time. I'm sitting here doing a podcast with you. 10 years ago, I didn't know what a podcast was.
Yeah, same. Learning how to learn. I love this stuff, Marie. I think this is wonderful. I would love to see if we can get you back as that career program continues to develop, because I think there's so much interesting content in there for us to discuss. And we really centered on the diploma program today. That's my bias, but I hope that we get a chance to explore a little bit more fully. So I'm not going to make you promise to come back right now on the show, but hopefully we can get you back for a future.
I think you'll be able to get me back.
All right.
Thanks.
That sounds great. Folks, we would also like you to come back and meet with us next week. We're going to be talking about some different pathways that students can take after graduating high school. Physical and occupational therapy and athletic training will be one area of focus. We will also talk about nursing pathways and a little bit of focus on some scholarships that might be available for students who are interested in pursuing a nursing program later on down the road. So lots of career-oriented stuff. Maybe we can slide Marie into a future segment for us to talk about the IB program. But this has been a really great show. I want to thank Marie. I want to thank Wally also for being on for our first segment. And we hope to see you all back here next week.